Dear God, won't somebody help me? Won't somebody save me? I've fallen further down the downward spiral, and there's no source of comfort for me in this long, strange, and frustrating moment of terror. Except for Do You Make Music, the podcast from the Daily Collegian, hosted by me, Ayden Herold. Today, I am here with a very wonderful and special artist, Rebecca Strauss, a.k.a. Pastiche. Say hello.
Thank you. Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, and I am very excited to have you on my podcast here today to ask you some awesome questions about music. More specifically, do you make music?
I do make music, yes.
There you go. No, but yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I really like hearing from artists how they define their own art and their own music. So how would you define Pastiche for me?
Well, I guess I have to start at the beginning and go back to high school, middle school, and start with a little saxophone playing Rebecca in band, in all sorts of bands, but in my very rural Pennsylvania, high school, middle school. I'm from like the Williamsport area. So it was kind of very conservative, very country, very just Pennsylvania, exactly. So that was my experience growing up, but band was my escape, and the saxophone was my escape. Mainly jazz, I would say, was like my favorite band to play in, and then we would play like 6 a.m. before school. So it was a big dedication. But once I came to college, I thought that I was going to be an astrophysicist. Don't know where that came from. Honestly, now that I think about it, don't know where that came from.
It turns out it really is rocket science.
Yes. Yeah. Music. Well, we'll get back to that. We'll come full circle. We will.
Okay. All right.
We'll come a little bit full circle. So thought I was going to be an astrophysicist. And I still, I loved physics. I did it for 2 years. The astrophysics was scary to me, and then I just kind of moved to physics when that became very stressful. Physics was a little bit better, but still I was kind of looking ahead going, I don't really want to take these like 400 level classes that are like scaring me, but I enjoyed like, electromagnetism and like those other quantum mechanics. I even went up to quantum mechanics and modern physics, and I enjoyed those classes, but I was still missing the music. I had tried out for... Sorry, this is a long expo.
No, you're good. You're good. We're a long-form podcast,
Okay, cool.
Take us down the whole journey.
Cool. So when I came to Penn State, I did try out for like the blue band on my tenor sax, and I did also try out for jazz band, center inner dimensions. I did not get into those. And had I known that they were going to accept 1 out of 11 tenor saxes, I wouldn't have even tried out, which that's normally the case for tenor saxes. In district band, they would take 2 out of 24, 24 would show up, whereas like clarinets, they would take 36 out of 70, so it's like you got way better chances.
Very stiff competition.
For
jazz.
Oh, definitely for jazz too. Everyone here, when I tried out for jazz, it just seemed like they just knew the pieces and they were sight reading, and it was very intimidating. So I did not get into those, and that was kind of discouraging. Kind of like, it felt like a slap in the face, but like I just had to kind of like cope. And so I joined some other bands that were kind of not really doing it for me musically, but I was still managing. But it came to like a point where I just like couldn't do it anymore, and I finally, it was like COVID really, that I decided that I really needed to get out of physics, and I made there was just a whole lot happening though in the music technology department at Penn State during that time also. There's a lot of circumstantial things that also kind of came together to make me who I am today. So I was getting out of physics, and I like could not get an email back from anybody, but I couldn't figure out why. And it's really because the previous department head for the music technology department, Mark Ballora, had just passed away very suddenly. And he would have been the person that I would have been emailing and like talking to, but they were really scrambling to, hire somebody new and get them kind of implemented into the school. So I was emailing some people and they were like, okay, you should email this person. And I was like so stressed. I was like, I need an advisor for just my life for college. Because I also did this weird thing where instead of just fully switching my major, I created my own major where I said, I don't want to lose my physics credits because physics is music. And so I made that argument to the university and they were like, okay, we'll let you like make your own major where you did physics and finished in music.
So from all this chaos, you were able to kind of draw your passion along with
Sure.
your whole your STEM education, right?
Yes.
And put them into one. That's very interesting. Okay.
Yes.
How did they? How did you kind of figure out the curriculum for that? Right? How was that?
It was a lot. It's kind of interesting when you go through college and you go to a liberal arts school and you're like, oh, I get to choose my classes. That's what liberal arts means. You get to like explore.
Be liberal with it.
Exactly.
And artistic.
Exactly. But that was not really the case when I was a physics major. Certainly it was very restrictive. But when I was doing, it's called the Bachelor of Philosophy here at Penn State.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work to like find the classes that I wanted to take. And then also you have to kind of argue to the professors and to the university that like, I sort of don't have the prerequisites for this, or like I'm not an engineering major, for example.
You have to persuade them that
exactly. But I want to take this circuits class, or like I want to do, I want to take this art class, but I'm not an art major. And there's so many roadblocks that they just make you hoops that they make you jump through.
Well, the with a lot of the art classes, I think past the basically general levels, you have to not audition, but I think have like prior experience with those, right? Or
yeah, exactly.
You have to have either taken the other ones or like prove that you can get in or something like that.
Exactly, the prerequisites. So that was a huge barrier. But I still managed to get into certain classes. I ended up taking like my senior year, I took an acoustics class. But mainly it was the classes that I took under my advisor, Dr. Sarah Rice, who she was teaching a lot of electronic music classes where we were composing using electronic music techniques. And I was just learning about all of this stuff. And it was a whole kind of new world to be in a classroom where we talked about politics, for example, was like very new to me, being from physics. But I was like, this is where I want to be, for sure. And so it really was the rejection of like I can't get into the bands with the saxophone that sort of started to propel me towards I need to kind of invent my own thing.
Yeah.
And that's when I started in Dr. Rice's classes, taking her coding classes, music programming classes. And I had taken previous coding classes, previous Python classes, hated them. They were the worst. And I think it was just the language, because in these classes we were using a language called Pure Data, which is also, there's like a paid version called MaxMSP, which is my preferred coding language. So I was learning MaxMSP in her classes and really figured out that kind of the background that I had in coding mixed with this new coding language that I really liked, I was able to actually make things that worked and did things, and like I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Coding does things.
And I guess you figured at that point that's how you could make music, right?
Exactly, yes. And I was like, I just could never make anything meaningful in like Python. And those classes don't allow you to make anything meaningful. But in Dr. Sarah's class, we were allowed to just like do whatever and explore everything. So she's great.
And that's how you ended up with Pastiche, right?
Yes. So I started to realize that kind of coding was a knack. Coding in MaxMSP was a knack of mine. And also from previous engineering classes, I had also taken some Arduino-like classes where...
Is that a programming language?
It's both a programming language and a hardware kind of company. I'm not really sure. They're like an open source. They're like tiny computers that you can code and program and wire to do whatever you want, essentially. So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah. So it's a different language. It is more akin to like C++, which I don't love, but it's manageable for me. I mainly just use Arduino though to make my own MIDI controllers because I don't have that kind of money for like $200 to $400 MIDI controllers. And I also I feel like I don't need a full MIDI controller, so I will just make a MIDI controller with a few knobs and a few buttons that I can then connect to. Reaper is my DAW of choice, and I use this plugin called Relearn by, I believe it's called Hegelblass, or it's by Hegelblass. It allows you to connect or read MIDI into Reaper, I guess, from an external source that isn't a MIDI controller, a normal MIDI controller.
Gotcha. So really quickly then, because you're speaking two languages
Sorry,
here.
yes.
No, you're good. Here's the thing, right? You're speaking two languages here that are vaguely familiar to me, but not super familiar. Because we got the realms of music and the realms of coding and technology here, both of which I'm vaguely familiar with. But I part of the beauty of this podcast is that I get to learn a lot. So if I may ask, right? So I remember Zach McKee, when I interviewed him, was talking a little bit about Reaper, right? That is a production, music production
digital
program,
audio,
right?
Yes, digital audio workspace, and it's free. I love that it's free. In college they make you use Logic and Ableton, but I love Reaper.
Gotcha. And for our people back home who aren't too sure what a MIDI is,
right.
Would you mind breaking that down really quickly?
I don't remember entirely what it stands for, and I'm gonna hate myself that I don't remember. Musical interface, digital something, musical, something along those lines. It's just when you play a real piano, for example, and you play an A, the frequency that is happening should be really at around 440 hertz, or like cycles per second.
Yeah.
So that's just what frequency is. But MIDI, you have to connect that A to, well, A is not really A, it's like just a number. So you have to be able to know that A is, gosh, what is A? 62? No, 64, something like that. 60 is C, I know that.
A C now?
Middle C, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So you have to be able to speak not only numbers, or notes as numbers, but also pressure.
Like how hard you press the keys.
Exactly. So, piano does have multiple pressures that you can press the keys, and MIDI, there's a number from 0 to 127 typically is the number, the range that you have with MIDI, the pressure. And what else is there? There's like CC number, which typically I also kind of connect to something. I basically just use MIDI to signal to my computer that this knob is this one thing, and it's I can connect it to other things based just using a number. It's just a complicated way, or it's the standard way of coding electronic music and like using electronic music, I guess.
Gotcha. And so that's how you make a majority or all of your musical projects then?
Mainly, yes. I like building my own MIDI instruments, and well, there's two ways that I like using the MIDI instruments though. So you can use it as a synthesizer. So you can export, or you can take the note that is being used from like a button, for example. And when I press the button, it'll play an A. In this digital audio workspace, for example, Reaper, and I can have any synthesizer hooked up in Reaper, and when I press that A, it'll play an A through the synthesizer, giving you a lot of just range of sound. I mainly like to use it, though, where I will connect it to parameters in Reaper. So I will have like either a synth or just music playing in Reaper, and then I can take one of my potentiometers or a button and connect it to a parameter in Reaper, so like a VST or an effect. And then you can mess around with it and do some crazy things in like live in person. And I find that just experimenting in that way is my favorite way to make music, because you can't really make mistakes. It's hard to make mistakes when you're just making it up as you go.
It's kind of the running theme, it's very much you're defining it for yourself, right?
Right. Yeah. And also the music itself kind of does what it wants, and I can only kind of control it so much, which I kind of enjoy as well.
Yeah. So if we take something like, I always was under this notion that, with music that's programmed, I never really thought to myself that it was like actively like programming like the notes themselves one at a time. I was under the impression that like, I don't know, I hear programming, right? And my first thought was like, oh, you're like, it's like typing it into the computer, like the program software,
right?
And then it would sort of arrange the music for you, and then you sort of work on it from there.
Right.
But for something like even your piano pieces, right? Like if you like here, like this one here, Crystalline, right? Which when I first heard it, just sounds like straight piano to me, right? How much of that is you like individually like I guess playing it out for yourself, and then how much of that is left to the programming?
Right. Okay. So Crystalline, that one is all done just by me. That is just a traditional composition that I did. But I do have other ones. I have a song called Dialogical Haptic Meditations, which was like a very, it was my senior song that I basically had to perform on a theremin that I had built. One of the MIDI controllers that I had built, I ended up making sound like a theremin, and then I performed this theremin on this song that I had also written. It ended up being very stressful. Like I built the thing, I coded the thing, I wrote the thing, I performed the thing. It was like too much. Don't ever do that to yourself. But let me think. So that piece, though, I coded in a different program called Open Music, actually, which is it's an interesting program, I'll say that. It's made by some French people, it's made by this group called IRCOM. And again, my advisor, Dr. Rice, kind of made me, or like, she would force us to use it. We never wanted to use it, but because it was so bad, like there was zero documentation. So
it's like that sometimes.
It's like that sometimes. It's French, so sometimes instead of circle, it's cercle. It's just like annoying.
It doesn't even like auto translate for you.
No, you have to type it correctly, or else it will like pretend that this function doesn't exist.
So are you telling me that you have to speak like programming code language, yes, and then French,
yes,
coding on top of that? Okay, yeah. All right.
And then when you try to look up what like arguments kind of go into the function, they'll just be like, I don't know, figure it out. It's very annoying. But the one thing that Open Music is really, really, really good at doing is spitting out music in score form. Max MSP, I don't even know if it can do that. I imagine it can, because it can output MIDI, right? And when you can output MIDI, you can make it into a score. But Open Music is unique in the way that it just kind of allows you to do a lot of crazy things with like rhythms and numbers and music math, and that sort of stuff.
Gotcha.
So you can, I don't know, dialogical haptic meditations. I used this mathematical thing called a tiling canon, which essentially, let me think if I can freaking explain this. I probably won't be able to fully, but it's just, I mean, a canon is a piece of music that it repeats or it like doesn't repeat. Does it not repeat? I can't remember.
I hear canon. I think like canon and D major.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm thinking. That is what a canon is. So all I know is that this piece, it was one like rhythm. And then it's offset, like I had 6 voices, right? So it's offset each voice, I think. But it's like the same rhythm, offset. That's how I can explain it. And it was just a very complicated process to to make that sound like music. But it is a very useful tool when I'm feeling lazy, because often I do feel too lazy to like write rhythms. So I will just like make that do it for me.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So I wasn't fully off then. No. But actually, really quickly, we can double back to what you were saying earlier. I'm curious. You said you had to build your own theremin.
Yes.
That's very interesting. Could you elaborate on that? What is that like? Because I got to play around with a theremin earlier at the summer. There was like I think it's the Free Library of Philadelphia. They had a free one you could use there.
That's awesome.
It's a picture of me in one of the Do You Make Music official playlist that has me operating the theremin there. But it's a very unique instrument. So I'm curious if you could elaborate on what that was about, or how what that was like for you.
Yeah, so when I had moved to this Bachelor of Philosophy major, I had to have a capstone project where I showed a board of people that I had learned everything that I was supposed to learn. I was supposed to prove to them that my major was valid and I did something.
It was science plus music.
Exactly. So I was like, and this was again, I was just getting out of physics. So when I was thinking about this, and I was like, what is the best thing to do? I want to build a theremin because I was always kind of mystified, and I think people still are mystified by theremins even 100 years later. Because
it's like the sci-fi, aside from the synth, it's like the sci-fi instrument, you know?
Yeah.
I think 1950s like sci-fi movies, right?
Exactly. So, and I sort of knew how it worked, but I wanted to know more how a theremin worked. And so I knew that it worked based upon capacitance, and I don't know if I can explain capacitance. It's just something that can hold a charge. So your body kind of acts as like this other half of a plate, and when you move closer to the antennas and farther away, it changes the amount of charge that is held in the capacitors.
Okay.
Which then changes the pitch and volume. So
that's what makes it woobly.
Yes, woobly. Yes. So building it was definitely an experience. I originally was going to do all hardware. I was like looking at all of these wiring diagrams going, I'm going to build it all from scratch. And then I found out later that it is possible, but it's sort of also impossible because there's a lot of components that are not in existence anymore. Radio Shack is not around anymore, which is a tragedy, truly. I miss Radio Shack. I never experienced a Radio Shack, but I do miss them.
Don't worry about it. Towards the end, it was mostly just phones anyway.
That's true. That is true. So I lost my train of thought.
No, okay. So you were saying you're trying to build a theremin, right? Yeah. You know, block of wood, 2 antennas, but I imagine it's a lot more than that, and so a lot of hardware is just not there, not available anymore.
Yes,
it's not the 1950s. There aren't sci-fi soundtracks to be made, so it's going to be a little tougher to find it.
That's true.
So how'd you get around that? How'd you get around this particular obstacle?
Right. I mean, it was the same as as all my other projects building, I just made a MIDI instrument because I discovered that was infinitely easier to just take an Arduino, some potentiometers and whatever, and slap it all together and code it to sound in Maximus P to sound like a theremin, and do all the hard stuff in Maximus P. The hardest part was still the capacitance and like the antennas. I truly never got that working. The way I think to get that working was through using microchips, and I just never got them to work. But my solution was to use photoresistors, which are light sensing things. So
then it can detect your hand going over or around it. Okay.
Exactly. Hey, that was a perfect solution to that issue, and it was way easier, and it did the exact same thing.
Nice. So, you listen to Aphex Twin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I believe one of his earlier records before he got really big was I think it was a didgeridoo EP where he coded a didgeridoo instrument entirely from scratch.
That's awesome.
It sounds just like it, but yeah, I don't think he ever touched one.
That's cool.
I'm curious then, really quickly then, speaking of other artists, for the music that you make, do you take inspiration from anybody in particular? Or do any tend to come to mind when you're coding your midis?
Yeah, I definitely love like hyperpop, I think. I can't think of anyone particularly who makes music like me who would be perhaps recognizable. Some like academic people certainly, where I'm looking into like going to grad school, do this kind of stuff. But I'm mainly inspired by, I would say, hyperpop. So Sophie, and I do like, just traditional kind of like, I grew up with the radio, so that is a huge inspiration of music to me. And probably where the theremin, like, sci-fi kind of love, just of everything kind of 60s, 70s, so that kind of, just all of that music.
Gotcha. And so I know Sophie's kind of in that intersection between hyperpop and I'd argue electronic.
Yes.
Are there any electronic artists as well that, because we were talking about Aphex Twin earlier, anybody in that IDM area or when that scene that, I don't know, I would just figure considering with the whole synths and midis and whatnot, if anything stuck out to you. But if it doesn't, that's fine.
I feel like there's maybe too many I like. Thinking about early stuff, I love Wendy Carlos, obviously. I have trouble thinking of recent synthesizer kind of like artists and things, but I love older stuff, Wendy Carlos, and what was the other name I just had in my brain? Oh my gosh. No. Wendy Carlos, and I lost it. It's gone.
You're totally cool. That's all right. There's a lot of... I'm the exact same way for me, People will ask me, like, oh, you got a top 5 electronic artists or anything like that. I know my top 2, obviously it's Daft Punk and Justice.
Oh,
and then,
Daft Punk's great. Yeah.
But then, I can name, 10 others, but I'm like, oh, man, the other 3, it's like, give me a sec.
Yeah.
Give me a sec. It is what it is.
Okay, I think I remember it was Mort Garson who does Plantasia. I loved that album, Plantasia, the original kind of synthesizer stuff.
Nice. I'm trying to think. Well, I had a thought and then it went away, so no thoughts at the moment. But that's all right, because I can move on to some of my other questions here really quickly. So in terms of live performance, then I'm curious, what is that like for you? Because from what we've talked about so far, it seems like a lot of your music is based around programming in your own sort of in your own time at your own pace, and
yes.
Doing it. And I think what most people would assume is like on your. Sorry, what am I thinking? On your own, on your laptop, or that kind of thing. So,
yes.
what is live performing? What does that look like for you?
Right. So, I often, it's often a lot of wires and a lot of like, kind of running around trying to like fix things as they break in front of me, or just like experimenting. I also just love experimenting and kind of letting the sounds do what they want, and again, trying to keep them under control. Sometimes I don't successfully do that, and it gets too loud, and then I make funny faces during my performances because I'm not expecting these interesting noises happening.
It's improv.
It's improv, exactly. I have I have all of these synths. I use an omnichord sometimes in my performances, which is a chord machine. It's an old synthesizer from the 80s, and I use that to as a sample machine sometimes. So I have it trigger different samples in Maximus P. So performing live, it is just kind of an experience. It's not. I would love to make dancing music. I am working on dancing music, right? But for right now, it's sit and listen,
vibe.
And vibe, and just imagine alien landscapes and stuff.
Yeah, the 4 on the floor comes later.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, okay, cool. So here, really quickly, we can move on to our next segment, which I'm very excited for. It's relatively new at the moment, but
okay.
A tribute to the original Aydenator, Mr. Gus Wall. This is Gus Wall's Gutter Balls. Some journalists have hard balls, some journalists have curved balls. This is a gutter ball, and I'll let you run with that.
Nice.
So these are questions sourced from Instagram, from followers of the Ayden Nation.
Cool.
At Ayden's Portfolio on Instagram. And so I think, just take these questions and run with them as you will, So here we go. Okay. So, okay. Here's an interesting one. I don't know who asked this, but I got it down. We got here, taser to the ribs for 10 seconds or 1 spritz of pepper spray to the face.
Oh gosh, I've seen people walk away from both. So
just fine or
walk? Oh yeah.
Really?
I mean, okay, maybe less pepper spray. I feel like taser, I've seen people walk away from a taser, fine, but
it's how long were they tasered for? That's the thing. This person is saying 10 seconds straight.
I've seen people tasered for multiple seconds, and they're just walking. They're just fine, not even affected by it. So, I think I could do a taser because pepper spray definitely lasts for a long time. Gotcha.
Yeah, no, I've definitely I've heard with pepper spray it sticks and it sticks and it sticks and it sticks.
Yeah.
And it don't come off easy.
No, at least with the taser, it's over when it's over.
You start running and then it's done, right?
Yes.
Here we go. Oh, okay. This one is, I asked this one last time, and I got some very interesting answers from it, so I'm going to ask it one more time here before I'm done with it. What was your last injury?
Injury? Oh, wow. Probably skating, because I do roller skate.
Oh, nice.
So, let me think. Or just, fainting, because occasionally I do just, faint randomly. Injury, though. God, I'm just very accident prone. I don't know. How big are we talking?
Well, I was asking the guys last time if any of them were also a member of the Never Broken a Bone Club.
I am a member.
Okay, cool. So we got that.
Yeah.
So then we have to think a little more broadly, right?
Yeah.
Bumps, scrapes, bruises.
Yes.
I think my last one was I accidentally bumped my head on a cabinet as I was getting up, which love to feel it, just.
Yeah.
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 Because you can only be mad at yourself.
Yeah, I took a nasty fall right on my hip on solid concrete after while skating in Altoona. So I would say that a few months ago.
Big hip bruise. Okay.
Yeah, a big bruise. It did not go away for a few weeks. Yeah.
I love bruises because they just slowly change color over time. You get to see the full spectrum of the human skin.
Yeah, it kept getting darker, and I kept thinking it was going to stop getting more purple, and then it kept getting more purple. It was concerning after a while.
I didn't even know humans could turn green,
Yes, exactly.
I thought it was just an emoji, but no, that happens.
It does, yeah.
All right, 3 out of 4 here. Ooh, okay, somebody got deep on this one. When was the last time you cried?
Oh, Lord have mercy. I've been in my feelings recently.
Right.
Listen, Sufjan Stevens released a new album. So I'm gonna say like yesterday. I say like yesterday because this album he released, which is all of his albums, first of all, but this recent album he released about the death of his partner. Just like can't even get through it.
No, that's very coincidental because earlier this week I was gonna say the same thing happened to me. I was listening to Sufjan Stevens. You ever listen to Jay Dilla?
No, I gotta write him down.
I would very strong. Yes, okay, Jay Dilla. Now's my turn to geek out, right?
Okay.
He is one of the pioneering DJs of the mid-90s to early 2000s. He unfortunately passed in, I believe, 06 or 07, but his biggest masterpiece album, most people will tell you, is this thing called Donuts, right?
Okay.
He made this entire album of just pure hip-hop beats, almost entirely sample from samples on one machine while he was dying in the hospital.
Shit.
Yeah. It's a very, very deep album, very masterful. I think you might like it because it falls a little bit within your purview. But there's this one song on there called "Stop" that I was listening to. It first caught my ear because it's a really, really great beat, really awesome guitar solo at the end that he sampled from somewhere. But at first I was listening to it, I was like, "Wow, this is a really awesome vibe. The song has a really great vibe. It's so cool." But then I start listening to it a little bit closer, and I'm realizing, oh wait, this song's actually kind of almost a little sad because he uses samples that kind of allude to his own death, which was sort of coming. And and then I think my third or fourth time listening to it, I realized that there's a sample at the start that is literally asking, it's saying, "Is death real?" And I was like, oh my god!
Oh, that's harsh.
And I broke hard. I was like, oh my, this man is literally ruminating on his own mortality in the form of samples.
Yeah, I think you got David Bowie just releasing an album also when he's dying.
Right.
Just how? I don't know how you do that. Rough.
It's tough stuff, but great art. Yeah, really great art. And then okay, I'm trying to see here one more for you. Oh yes, okay. One music genre has to die. Which one's going?
Oh Lord. Can I pick one? It has to be modern country. I'm talking I'm talking the pandering country because I'm a fan of obviously folk. I mean John Denver any day. Just even Conway Twitty, I could do the real southern old country, but
Johnny Cash,
exactly. If you're gonna be pandering to me in your $3,000 boots and your, I can't.
Big old Ford
I
trucks.
Can't do it. No, can't do
Bottles of beer and some ladies on the beach.
So let's bring back the real country, I guess.
We need to bring back the toil, the struggle,
Yeah, I guess.
These man's gotta be. We gotta have real highwaymen. Right?
Exactly. When we were, can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay. When we were unionized, when we were talking about,
yeah,
to be unionized,
sticking it to the man.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Well, here I believe we're on our last 3 to 4-ish questions here, so we're taking it in for a landing, right?
Cool.
So I'll ask you then. Excuse me. What are you working on right now?
Right now, I am. Oh gosh, I'm busy working on applying to grad school. Actually, that is my next step, and that is a lot of professional kind of stuff. Getting a lot of your professional looking stuff looking professional, and it's stressful. So it's just a lot of organizing. But that's where some of the more traditional compositions have been coming from. I do have more of those kind of up my sleeve that I have not gotten people to play because I find it really challenging. That might have been my computer.
I think that was it.
It's really challenging for me to write these traditional compositions for a big band and then find 9 people to play it and find a place to play it. I would rather, just do it myself. And that's why I do the electronic music, I think. It's very instantly gratifying, I think. But yeah, applying to grad school, I'm trying to work on more dancing music and moving away from the ambient stuff. I'm always trying to get more structure in my pieces, but I also want the structure to kind of happen naturally. I don't want to force it, and I don't want to
limit yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Gotcha. And that kind of stuff, are you looking to like publish it on your own? Or are you looking to use it in a class or at like a recital or something
Yeah,
like that?
I mean, yeah, I will have stuff on an upcoming recital soon, actually next week, I think, literally a week from today. And what else am I doing? Performing, just focusing on performing, and because I have these pieces, I just was struggling to get them performed, and yeah, that's about it, I would say.
Nice.
Struggling through the grad school grind.
It's fall, It's
Yes,
if ever there was a grind time, right?
exactly.
Is there anything in general you'd like to add about anything? Music, yourself, Penn State, Pennsylvania, the universe, space? I don't know,
That's a oh gosh, that's a lot of pressure. I would maybe I guess just there are spaces for your art and for your expression, and I think going through college and feeling kind of weird and feeling kind of not good enough at the same time, and wanting to try things and wanting to experiment and feeling not good enough. And there are places that, for example, I intern at Three Dots downtown, and that is a really beautiful art space where I help put on artist markets, and I guess this is my plug. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
plug.
I was gonna have the plugs next, but go right ahead. Yeah, so
okay,
Three Dots. Anyone else? Anything else?
Into that. So yeah, I intern at Three Dots. Put on some artist markets and shows there. I think we're having one November 4th, 1 to 5 is the next one, and that has been very, very fulfilling. Just like making connections, working with other artists, and giving them a space to perform and work, and all of that is really important to me.
Nice. Any shout outs you want to give?
Shout outs? Oh gosh. I guess I gotta shout out Zach, because I mean, I already shouted out my advisor, Dr. Sarah Jen, and yeah, just all of my other colleagues in my composition cohort and in Penn State, I guess, shouting them out. Not by name, but I'm shouting them out as a group.
Yeah, the collective.
Exactly.
And so for people back at home, where can they find your music?
Mainly on YouTube at Pastiche Music. I am on Instagram also at Pastiche Music. And I do have a website that is also included some art stuff on there. And those generally encompass all of my art. I'm going to maybe try to do more stuff on Spotify. Who knows?
Gotcha. Yeah, no. Well, let me know if any of your stuff comes out on Spotify, because as I plugged once and I'll plug again, we got the Do You Make Music official artist playlist on Spotify, where all of our previous interviewees can, have their works highlighted. Sorry, I'm just making sure people know, because I promoted it a little while ago. I just want to keep making sure people. That's where the music is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, with that said, I want to thank you very much, Rebecca, for coming on to the show. Mm-hmm. It has been lovely having you, and for all you wonderful people back at home, members of the Ayden Nation and subscribers to the Daily Collegian, thank you so much for listening.